welcome to Backyard Farmer. I'm Kim Todd, and we are so glad you can join us again for another hour of answering your gardening questions. We'd love to hear from you, so if you have a gardening question, dial 1-800-676-5446. Our volunteers will be happy to help you. Pictures and emails get sent to byf@unl.edu. Make sure you take good pictures, and do not forget to tell us where you live. You can also watch our past shows. You can search thousands of videos on our YouTube channel. And while you're at it, head over to our Facebook fan page for weekly updates on the show. So we are starting right off, Kate, with questions for you. This is your first show of the season.
It is. I'm excited.
So welcome aboard.
Thank you.
You have a Gretna viewer. She has sent us two pictures. Blue spruces are 3 years old. She's wondering, are these bagworms? There are little green larvae inside the needles. What does she do to kill them?
So these are not bagworms, but they are also a moth caterpillar. These are spruce needle miners, which, as their name suggests, the caterpillars mine into the spruce needles. And so usually, as long as the tree is healthy, they're kind of a non-issue. You know, just make sure the tree is well watered, have a nice mulch ring. But you can also spray those masses out. You can try to rake them out. And if it really comes down to it, you can do a foliar spray sometime between mid to late June.
All right, Kate, thank you. Two pictures on the next one. This comes to us from Paxton, Nebraska. And she says she came across this huge bug in her yard. Do we have any idea what it is? Is it good or is it bad?
So these are actually really cool. This is a giant water bug. And as you can kind of see here on the sample on the table, they are quite giant and kind of intimidating to look at, because another name for them are called toe biters. So they actually live in the water. They're predatory. They will feed on things as big as small fish and small frogs. But they have a heck of a bite to them. So they're one of the, you can look at it, but don't touch it bugs.
So put your finger up by that for a minute, just so our viewers can see how big that.
Yeah.
That's terrifying.
So toe biter is just not a clever name.
It's not, no.
I think it's a great name. Don't put your toes in the water. All right, Rock. Thanks, Kate. You have two pictures on the first one. This one comes to us from Idaho Springs, Colorado, and she starts panel by saying, love, love, love the show, which is great. She's in the foothills, elevation 7,200 feet. She doesn't want to keep grass. She inherited the grand dog peeing the yard to death. So we have pre-pee and we have post-pee pictures. She wants to know if red or white clover would work. She wants pollinators. Will the clover overwinter? Temps get down to 20. But so what do we think for her here?
So there's a little bit of a rumor on the internet that the clovers are much more resilient when it comes to dog urine, and I'm going to say there aren't any plants that are resilient to dog urine. It's caustic. It does all kinds of bad things. But its vigorous growth habit of white clover specifically does make it a more desirable species in a mixed lawn, like she showed the picture of, and it can tolerate more urine than can Kentucky bluegrass, which is probably what that lawn was based on her location. I think she mentioned something about she's worried about winterkill. It's not going to winterkill. I've seen actually white clover lawns in Ontario, Canada, about 500 miles from the Arctic Circle. So it's got plenty of cold tolerance. Seeding into it could be a little bit of a problem because the urine can negatively affect the soil. So they might want to throw some compost or something down along with it, and then quit fertilizing that lawn if that's what she wants. Because don't overseed, don't spray out the old grass. Just simply seed into that. Maybe put a little compost to absorb some of the toxic stuff that is in the urine, and I think she'll be pretty pleased with the end result. She mentioned red clover. I would stay away from red clover because they can get 14 to 18 inches tall. That's a little bit tall for a backyard, and attracting pollinators is great, but if you've got young children or whatever running around, or even the dog, they can get stung if there's a lot of bee habitat in and where they're running around.
All right, thanks, Rock. You have three pictures on this one. He's Lincoln, North Lincoln, brown patches. He's tugged on the turf, doesn't pull. I know it could be yours or Kyle's or somebody's, but he wants to know what's going on here.
Well, Kyle and I talked about it a little bit before, and we've had this shift in temperatures that is characteristic when we see Ascochyta leaf blight. This happens to be a fescue lawn. It'll affect fescue and bluegrass lawns, and also perennial ryegrass lawns. There's nothing you can do about it. We've identified it. It'll recover. As a matter of fact, I would be surprised if it isn't already showing some recovery there. But I showed it to Kyle, and he and I both agreed it was Ascochyta leaf blight.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, if you look at kind of the tips of the blades have that characteristic needle appearance too. So.
All right. Nice to know. Okay, Kyle, you have 2 pictures on this first one. Mm-hmm. And they're saying this is how a small area of the lawn came out of winter. Can you tell what's going on in this? They did notice that last year and the area seems to be growing or spreading.
Unfortunately, I do not know what's going on with this. That's one of the difficulties with identifying a lot of turf diseases from pictures is they all look like just kind of brown patches. I haven't seen a ton of turf diseases being active yet either. So I don't know what's going on there. I would keep an eye on it, and just hope it greens up eventually. And if it doesn't, would probably have to see a sample in person.
All right. You have 2 pictures on this one. This is a Seward viewer. She discovered this, and I think the other one's a little closer, on her columnar blue spruce. Is there something she can do to get rid of it, or can she save the tree?
Well, that is sap, and so you don't want to get rid of the sap in the tree. That's pretty important. And when we have this excess sap flow like this, generally that can be a sign that there's something else going on with the tree. There are some other stresses. Honestly, from that first picture, that tree doesn't look like the greatest tree in the world, and one that in 10, 15 years you might not like the shape of anyway. So with it being this small, I would probably think about a replacement.
All right, thank you, Kyle. Scott, welcome to the show. Your first one too. Your first question is from Omaha. She's got Thai basil, and she's seeing these weird purple splotches. She's given us a lot of information about how she's growing them, which we really appreciate. And she's wondering, is this a virus? Can she use them or destroy them? What do we think here?
No, it doesn't look like a virus. What's going on here is probably more environmental conditions, and it's often normal that some of our purple basils, that we can get some of that thumbprint on the leaf that has that purple coloration. Today I went out to local garden center to take a look, and we did have some Siam Queen basil that just has this really nice, fun variegation, the purple. The plants look happy and healthy. No need to get rid of them.
All right, good, Scott. You have 1 picture for the next one, and a couple people on this asking the question, which we've answered and are answering. This one's 3 years old. She sees a cauliflower in the middle of it. What is it, and does she leave it? And then we have an Auburn viewer who has basically said she's got rhubarb in a peony bed, and they go to seed and the stalks are hollow. So
with the first photo, with the rhubarb, that's normal. They do bolt, they do send up a flower. It's best to go ahead and cut those out. It's going to be hollow, nothing to be alarmed about. Some of our older cultivars of rhubarb do tend to bolt early. So you can look at maybe introducing some new cultivars like a Canadian Red. And then that second photograph, that was just the milkweed popping up. And those are, they're a fun plant. If it's not where you want them, you could try to transplant it or just root it out. But they are known to self-seed and spread across the landscape.
And that's it's great. And he actually said on that he pulled back the cover and here it came, and he grew long beans, and he knows this is not long beans. So good identification on the part of our viewer on that one. So thanks, Scott. Well, once again, we return to the topic of pruning, and this time it's because we have been overrun with questions about hydrangeas. Before you grab those pruners, you have to know what's in front of you. Those of you who really love what we tell you on Backyard Farmer and you have questions about hydrangeas, you may wonder why I come back and say, we have to know what kind of a hydrangea this is if we are going to give you the good information about how to prune them. So let's just show you why we need to know what kind of a hydrangea it is. We talk about 5 different types that are in some form semi-hardy, which is sort of funny anyway, here in Nebraska. So oak leaf hydrangea is a 100% woody plant. You can see the last year's flowers on it. You can see the new flower buds on it. The only reason you have to do any pruning at all in an oak leaf hydrangea is if you get great big canes that are sort of old or crossing. If they start to be a little bit unthrifty, if you don't like the height, you can take them down. But you don't prune these much, if at all, especially if you think you're going to take off the flower buds. That's a big deal on hydrangeas. We need to know which one because we know when those flower buds are set. The second type that's very popular is the ones that people usually buy with the names Limelight, Bobo, those sorts of hydrangeas. Those are panicle hydrangeas. Those are also 100% woody shrub. So they are not something that you have to prune if you don't want to. If you get the little dwarf ones like Bobo, they're going to stay down here. They're going to get a little cross. They're going to get way too many branches. They're not going to have very good airflow. They may not bloom as well if you don't do a little bit of pruning on them. You can prune them lightly when they're young and little. You can prune them within an inch of their hydrangea life if you really need to take them back. They are a woody shrub and they flower on current year's wood, which means you can prune them if you have forgotten, even as late as now after they start leafing out. And again, you can prune them down to sticks if you need to. The third type we talk about and look at are the ones that are the big leaf hydrangeas, the macrophyllus. These are the pink and blue ones. And unfortunately in Nebraska, even with the good breeding that has given us such hydrangeas as Endless Summer, they bloom on both old wood and new wood, but the plant itself, the genetics of the plant, are such that it is the older stems that bloom better. Those are the ones that really don't want to live through our winter. So what you end up with is basically nothing until you see those stems green up. So you can wait as long as possible to see if some of the old short canes are going to actually leaf out. Leave those there. You may get a flower bud on those. Chances are instead, however, you're going to have to bring them from the base. Fourth type is the climbing hydrangea. Absolutely gorgeous, beautiful, 100% top hardy. The only thing you would do to prune on that one is you kind of direct it the direction you want it to go. Not much to it, and they will cling with adventitious roots to whatever they're climbing up. And finally, we have the fifth type, which is the one, the old-fashioned one is Annabelle. Incredibelle, the great big flower heads on it. That is smooth hydrangea. It is essentially sort of a suffrutescent shrub. It won't branch, it can get really tall and leggy. That one blooms again on new wood, so you prune that one back to buds that are going in the right direction. You lower the height on that one. You prune that one so that it can flower in the summer. So if you don't know, you will have pruned the flower buds off. You will be saving wood that actually is never going to produce a flower. In the case of the big leaf hydrangeas, you will not prune enough on the ones like the panicles that have great big flower heads. So you've got to tell us what you've got. And once again, if you do know what type of hydrangea you have, pruning should be relatively easy. We also have several past videos that we've produced on the topic. So if you need more information, go to the Backyard Farmer YouTube channel. You will be an expert on pruning your hydrangeas in no time. We hope. Okay, Kate, 2 pictures on this first one near Firth. She found several of these on her Spiraean columbine. What are they? And your second picture is a cocoon or an egg sac, Omaha. 2 on Clethra hummingbird. What are they? And then you have, so we have all sorts of people that are sending us these. What are they?
Mm-hmm. So these are all the egg cases or the ootheca of the Chinese mantis. So the Chinese mantis is an introduced non-native species, but it's those really big praying mantises that we see kind of late summer. Get several inches long, and in these egg cases, there's going to hatch about maybe 100 to 200 little tiny baby mantids. And so my recommendation is just to let them be. You know, mantids are predators, so they're not harming the plants, but they also don't care what they eat, whether it be pollinator, whether it be pest. So you can just let the ecosystem do its thing.
And if you bring them into your office, they hatch in your office. So don't do that.
Very true, yes.
All right, you have one picture on the next one. This comes to us from Alta Vista, Kansas. He has a friend asking what type of caterpillar or larva is crawling out from under her porch.
Well, I can tell you that it's a caterpillar. Not much beyond that it's probably a moth. Caterpillars can kind of be tricky because there's so many different types of them, and we usually try to guess what they are based on their host plant, but since it came from under a porch, I'm not sure which caterpillars inhabit porches.
All right.
So not the best answer, but moth caterpillar.
Thank you, Kate. And one more. This is a Lincoln viewer. Had native wild columbine, or no, this is hibiscus, covered with these. What are they? They are totally, I mean, what happens here?
Yes, so these are aphids, and aphids are small little insects that feed on the plant sap, and they reproduce really quickly, get really high numbers, really overwhelm the plant. And so if it's an outside plant, what you want to do is try to take a really strong stream of water to knock those aphids down. You can also use products like insecticidal soap or neem oil to try to get them too, but it's not a one and done process. You have to keep doing it because there's a lot of aphids you got to get off of there.
All right, thank you, Kate. Rock, two pictures on this one. This is an elkhorn viewer. Accidentally went over the asparagus patches in their yard with weed and feed. The stalks had not emerged yet. She sent us pictures of two different things she used. She did use the first one on one side, and she thinks the second one kind of went onto both. What do we say here?
We got a lot of levels of stuff going on here, right? So first of all, those products are labeled for turf and not for asparagus, so technically they can't be applied to asparagus, but it was done accidentally, so that's fine. But all of the active ingredients in those products are labeled for use in asparagus. The 2,4-D, the dicamba, the pendimethalin, and the dithiopyr. Pendimethalin and dithiopyr are pre-emergents, and I'd question why you need two, but that's up to you. And then the two broadleaf herbicides. They're labeled for asparagus, but the products aren't. And here's why I'm going to say I wouldn't eat the asparagus when it comes. We don't know what the inert ingredients are in that product. We don't know what else they put in there to make them stick or stay or make them longer residuals. And I know this is going to be painful because the viewer's going to want to eat that asparagus, but I'm going to say not eat it. It's probably fine because those are labeled products, but I would hate to venture that out as even a guess based on we don't know everything else that's in the formulation. All that said, if they decide to ignore my recommendation, then make sure they clean them very well if they decide to eat them, which once again, I'm going to say, since it wasn't labeled for that particular target, labeled for the pest but not for the target crop, that I would avoid that. And then the last thing, there's two pre-emergent herbicides in there and you don't need two. So I don't mean to be negative about that, but be careful you read the labels and realize that you're putting on two pre-emergents when you only need one. And then next time, don't put it on the asparagus, but I think you already know that.
All right, thanks, Rock. You have two picks on this next one. She's in York. She had her yard reseeded, the new soil brought in the new weeds. She's never had this one before, this grassy weed. Do we know what this is?
I need a closer picture of the leaf and stem and where the leaf touches the stem. I've got some guesses, but they'd be guesses, and it's such a wide array of grasses that look like it's kind of like Kyle was saying about diseases. Sometimes a picture isn't worth 1,000 words. It needs to be a little bit closer. So if they want to take a closer picture or take it into their extension office, certainly they could take a look and maybe key it out for them.
All right, and one more on this one. This is a Lincoln viewer. They're saying this purple weed has formed a great big patch by their raised beds and it's seeding into other places. Is it henbit? How do we control it?
It's not henbit, but everyone misidentifies it as henbit. It's purple dead nettle, and they're both mints. They're both winter annuals, They both have square stems. They both have a little bit of an aroma to them. We brought in a sample that I've got in my hand here, and you can see that looks a lot like henbit. Control measures are going to be the same. You know, a pre-emergent in the fall of the year because they're winter annuals. It was in a planting bed, I believe, so you're going to want to avoid any of the 2,4-D or those type products. And it can be pulled, but they're such prolific seed producers that if you let it seed, it's going to be a problem. So I'd get that out of there right away, and these flowers aren't fully mature. They haven't set seed yet, so get it out of there.
And it looks a little taller than henbit.
You know, it looks a little taller. It doesn't have the, it's got hairy stems or like peach fuzz on the stem. Sorry, thank you, Kim. I wanted to talk about ID. And henbit's got a more scalloped edge around it. And the flowers on henbit are trumpet shaped. And the flowers on purple dead nettle are like an 80s throwback. They're tubular, dude.
You've just been waiting to say that. All right, thanks, Rock. Kyle, you have 2 pictures on this one. This is the second, and she's in Trainer, Iowa.
Okay.
This is the second year her hosta leaves have come up crinkly or wrinkly like this. She's wondering, is this a virus? Will they continue to grow like this, or should she replace them?
It could be hosta, you know, you're probably concerned about hosta virus X. That's everybody's concerned with hostas, but I see a lot of hostas that look crinkly, and I very rarely find hosta virus X. I think the cooler temperatures that we've had, it got warm, so stuff started to grow, but then we had our fall spring into late winter. You know, it's the weather in Nebraska and Iowa as well is weird, and that's my guess as to what's going on with those hostas. That said, if you are seeing it repeated year after year, it could be a virus issue, but it's something that we would actually have to test for in the lab in order to confirm that.
Right, and it looks like sort of an odd planting spot.
It does. It's just kind of right on the edge, and I'm not entirely sure what they were going for there, but.
All right, thank you, Kyle. You have 3 pictures on this next one. This one is in Carney. It's a knockout rose. She's pruning the dead cane. She noticed a couple of ugly spots. Mm-hmm. Is it insect disease, hail damage? The rose is against the house and faces south.
Okay. I don't think it's hail damage. If it was hail, you'd probably be seeing more of them. I would just call this basically a rose stem canker. And so there was likely some injury that occurred right at that spot. Maybe there was a bug that took a bite out of it. Maybe it got hit by a small piece of hail or sandblasted, something like that. But there is some wound that allowed another fungus to get into it, and that's what we're seeing is the secondary fungus that is kind of growing on the otherwise wounded tissue. So great job pruning it out, but I don't think you'll need to be concerned about it spreading to the rest of your roses.
All right, thank you, Kyle. Scott, round 2 here. This is a catalpa. It's here in Lincoln, showing the sides, and he's wondering if the condition of the bark looks all right on this. We used 2 of his 4 pictures, and the base is probably what he's most concerned about.
When I was looking at the photographs, trying to enlarge it, nothing is jumping out at me. The bark looks intact. Catalpa does have that alligator-type skin look. As long as the wood underneath, that's not soft, it's not mushy, it looks like it's fine. It's in good conditions.
He'll be happy to hear that. All right, 2 pictures on the next one, Scott. This is Omaha. And this is a maple. She apparently inherited this when she moved. And somebody looked at it and said, this is not a problem tree. So there's the top. And I think we have the roots on this too. Girdling root, perhaps. Does it have a limited lifespan?
There's a lot going on with this tree. Unfortunately, with that girdling root, it looks like it could have been planted too deep. it might just be a good opportunity to get something else started in the landscape and then wait a couple years before you eventually take out this tree. It's going to probably continue to grow for a couple more years, but it's not going to thrive.
All right, thanks, Scott. Let's see, you have one on this one. This is Bloomfield, trunk damage on a maple. What do we think it's from, and what can be done to remedy this one?
This one, again, a lot going on with this tree. It does look like the tree is planted too deep. It could have been injury from a lawnmower, weed whacker, something of that nature. It also has turf growing right up to the trunk of the tree, which is never something we recommend. If you want to try save the tree, what you could do is put some wood chip mulch around the tree, go out as far as you would like to in the landscape, continue to provide good health care for the tree, but with it being planted too deep, it's a smaller tree, might be a good opportunity to get something else going and try again.
All right, Scott, one more picture. This comes to us from Omaha. A big tree starting to heave the sidewalk. He was advised to remove the slabs and grind those roots down because it wouldn't hurt the tree.
That's a loaded question. We never recommend any type of tree work on the roots, especially mature trees. They tend not to like that too much. But the one thing, this is an elm tree, and elm trees have been known to be more forgiving with that type of work. So if you want to try it, give it a go and hope for the best.
Okay. Thank you, Scott. Well, we need to take a break, but before that, let's hear this week's weather forecast from Gannon Rush of UNL's High Plains Regional Climate Center.
Thanks, Kim. Temperatures will vary pretty wildly this week, with anywhere from the upper 40s to the low 80s. Friday and Saturday will be warmer before we have a brief cool down on Sunday. Things will rebound quickly, and by Tuesday and Wednesday, highs will be in the upper 70s into the low 80s. The major point this week is heavy precipitation, with large portions of the state expecting at least 1.5 inches of rain. This will occur in several rounds of storms beginning tonight through Sunday. Some of these storms could be strong to significant and have downpours associated with them. After this unsettled period, things will calm down next week. Soil temperatures held on nicely despite the cold snap last week. There are some pockets that are still in the 40s, while the majority of the state is in the mid to upper 50s. Warmer temperatures this week will greatly benefit the soils. And that's your weekly weather forecast. Back to you, Kim.
Right now it is time for the lightning round. Scott, first lightning round, and you are in the hot seat. You ready?
Oh boy, let's give it a go.
All right. Your first lightning round question comes to us from Council Bluffs, Iowa. She says her grass clippings were treated with a pre-emerge and fertilizer. Can she put them on her garden?
You want to check the label. It might be the best not to the first couple mowings, but double check that label before you put it on.
All right. We have a viewer in Omaha who has older saved seed that's purchased seed, not collected. She's wondering if the plants that will germinate from that old seed will be as thrifty as the plants from new seed.
A lot to unpack right there. They should be, if they were open pollinated hybrids, they should be fine. But then plant them and find out. It's kind of fun.
All right, Atlantic, Iowa is now zone 5. Is it too early to put cannas in containers?
We are getting close to that ideal time. Cannas are a very tropical plant. You can get them in the containers, but maybe keep them indoors before you move them out. But we want those nighttime temperatures above 50.
Excellent job. And as you get better at this, we're going to give you permission to say yes or no. All right, Kyle, not that you're much better sometimes.
I never say yes or no, yeah.
All right, you ready?
Sure. Sure, yes.
All right, we have viewers from both Omaha and Bertrand who sent us pictures of fasciated dandelions, which was at the break.
Beautiful.
What causes that?
Environmental conditions, strange mutation that occurs, so something cool to look at.
All right, we have a Lions viewer who thinks they have root knot nematodes of some sort in some of their plants. Is there any treatment whatsoever?
If you think you have root knot nematodes in any of your plants and you're in Nebraska, please contact me. I doubt you do, but please contact me.
All right. We have a question about whether bleach, vinegar, or hydrogen peroxide is better for sterilizing your pruning tools.
Honestly, they'll all work. You just want to make sure, especially if you're using a peroxide based one that you are, or a bleach, that you're kind of wiping it off afterwards. Otherwise, you'll get some pitting. But they all work for cleaning your tools.
All right. We have an Omaha viewer who saw some sort of patchy stuff on his tree, and it is lichens, but he's wondering, is it a fungus?
It's yes, and so it's most likely some algae is growing there as well. So when you have the algae and the fungus together, we get lichens. So, fun stuff.
Cool. All right. Ready?
Sure.
Sure. All right. Your first one comes to us from Orleans, and we're not talking new. And the question is 2,4-D something that you can use to kill weeds in iris beds?
Yes.
Okay. We have a viewer who has what is now a 5-year-old fescue lawn. They're wondering, is it time to power rake it?
You don't power rake tall fescue, you core aerify it.
Okay. They have a 5-year-old fescue lawn. Is it time to core aerify it?
Yes, it is.
All right.
You should aerify once a year.
All right. We have a North Millard viewer who just bought an electric mower, wants to know what height should it be set at for the season, and should it be adjusted?
You should not do seasonal adjustment. We know that that doesn't really help the plant out. And the maximum setting you can set it on is probably going to be 3.5 inches with the electrics. Just put it on the highest setting and go.
All right. We have an Omaha viewer who put their pre-emerge down, and now they're wondering about timing to do weed killer and then seed.
So pre-emergent down, if they use any of the commonly available ones, they're not seeding until next fall. Mm-hmm. And then the other weed killer they can do pretty much any time because they can't seed now.
Okay. Oops.
Oops.
All right, Kate, you ready?
Absolutely.
There we go with confidence.
Enthusiasm, yes.
All right, this is a Syracuse viewer who wonders, since we are a little warmer now in our zone, are we going to see different mosquitoes than we usually do, and should we be concerned?
We're probably going to see the same types of mosquitoes. We just might see different numbers of mosquitoes.
All right. Will a worm shocker rid a lawn of worms, and what is it?
From what I've read online, this is a double question, so it should be 2 points.
All right.
But it shocks the ground so the worms come up, which is, I think, great for collecting worms for fishing. What was the second part? Does it work? Mm-hmm. Well, it works for collecting worms, I guess. If that's what you're trying to do, sure.
Okay. We have a viewer who wonders if clover mites damage burning bushes, and if so, do they cause enough damage to have to cut them down?
Not clover mites, but you might have a spider mite issue.
All right. We have a viewer who wonders if there is anything besides permethrin as a tick repellent. It doesn't really work on plants on an acreage.
On plants, you're not going to really get repellents, but you can use other products that have like bifenthrin.
All right. Nice job, all. Let's see. Rock, you won.
No, I think we tied. I think she deserved that point that she thought she deserved.
Thank you. So sweet.
That's so
and
gracious.
I wanted to comment on the golf courses are doing that worm shock treatment, and then they're collecting the worms because they disrupt the surface on a golf green. So many people swear by it.
Well, there we go. Sounds like fun. All right. Well, you know, the weather is starting to cooperate, kind of, but we're not quite ready to plant our garden. We do have a brand new patio to show you, so let's take a minute to hear from Terry out at the Backyard Farmer Garden.
This week in the Backyard Farmer Garden, still slow and steady. All of our plants are in the greenhouse, getting bigger and bigger, bumping them up, and they're looking really good. So we're excited for the weather to start changing so we can bring those out and start hardening them off. But we have been working out in the garden as we can. There have been a few cool days, so we haven't gotten as much done as we really wanted. But if you do stop by, you can see that we have a brand new patio thanks to a bunch of college students and their class in front of our backyard farmer garden shed. So you can see our new patio. We're excited to find out what we're gonna do in between the pavers and stuff. And we're just slowly making sure our garden is cleaned up. We're gonna start turning our soil over and getting all those beds ready. So stop by the backyard farmer garden and check it out.
Thanks to all my students who helped us install those pavers on the new patio, and it's really a nice new addition to our garden area. We'll look forward to those Adirondack chairs. Right now it is time to hear from you, Scott. Plants of the week.
We have two viburnums here today. The first one up here, the tall one that I am holding, is the Prairie Classic viburnum. It's a nice looking shrub. It can grow up to about 15 foot tall. It has some really fantastic flowers. And then the one down here on the side, this is the Siebold viburnum. It's different. It has some really unique aroma to the leaf if you ever get up to it, but some great star-like flowers, but it grows up to about 20 foot tall, and both of these would make a good alternative to a small tree.
And when Scott says it has a unique aroma,
Very unique.
in other words, you don't want to stuff your nose into that thing. All right, thank you, Scott. Okay, let's see, Kate. You have two pictures on this first one. This comes to us from rural western Otoe County. They found this small cocoon while digging up henbit in one of the flower gardens, 3/4 of an inch long. Wondering, could this evolve into what?
So this is another one of those mystery moths, but I'm fairly confident that it is going to be a moth. Maybe it's the porch moth. You never know. So unfortunately, I can't get more specific than that, but it is a moth.
Going to be a moth.
Yes.
All right. You have one picture on this one. This she lives east of Council Bluffs on a hilltop. She found this butterfly. She's wondering, could it have been killed from the temperature that dropped to below 32? Lots of flowers. What would they survive on this early? And what is that?
Sure. So this is a black swallowtail butterfly. We're starting to see that first generation take flight. It could be the cold temperatures. Usually they survive unless it's a hard freeze. It could just be the end of its lifespan. But butterflies, they're not picky about flowers. They just need flowers where they can rest on. So big flowers, clusters of small flowers. I think she gave us a whole list, and all of those would work.
All right. And they don't live years anyway.
They don't live years anyway, yeah. Insects have short lifespans.
All right, thank you, Kate. All right, Rock, two pictures on this next one. This is again Southwest Lincoln. Lawn area was sodded late last summer after a construction project, and then they had a patio done, and it was trampled down next to the patio. Very sparse, the dirt's compacted. Should they resod? Should they overseed? They did apply a pre-emerge on March 28th.
So March 28th is, as we had mentioned earlier, it's, that pre-emergent is designed to last the season, right, or most of the season. So overseeding right now is going to be a little bit problematic. And the soil is probably compacted from the construction as well as debris that fell over. So I'm going to say they run an aerator through it, see how the lawn recovers and starts to encroach a little bit. And then even if it's fescue, it'll move a little bit. But just wait until next fall. Or don't put on that second pre-emergent application, but then it's going to be a little bit warm to try to see. But I would just overseed and try to get as close to the cultivar or to the species that you have currently.
All right, thank you, Rock. Two picks on the next one. So an old established lawn that looks nice from afar, but then it's very thin if you get closer. They use a 4-step fertilizer program, too much thatch, need to be overseeded. This is a Lincoln viewer.
Yeah, so this is, the 4-step program is great, but lawns age. and they age out and they thin out and et cetera, et cetera. So this is an opportunity to change to a newer, improved cultivar, or even change species. I can't really tell from the picture what species that is, but they might want to overseed with a turf-type tall fescue if it's bluegrass and get a nice blend of them both. The newer cultivars are more resistant to primarily diseases, so that's a good step in the right direction. But I would also run a core aerator over it multiple times and then split seed the grass seed into it. Since they got the pre-emerge, they had the pre-emerge down, right? They probably have to wait till fall to do that, but right now there's nothing fertility-wise. They could aerate yet this spring, and they might see some improvement, maybe not even have to overseed.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, Kyle, you have 4 picks on this one.
All right.
She lost a couple of pines, wants to stop anymore. They're 20 years old. The healthy ones get sick, die quickly. She is outside Pierce, so we can run through the pictures here, and this is just 2 months of progression from alive to dead.
Yeah, I know the first question that I had was what species of pines these are, and then we got to this picture, and it told me enough. So I still don't, it's always good to know, again, what type of plant we are working with. Pines are no different. But what was curious, is it a native pine or one of our non-native pines?
Scotch pine.
And it was my guess was either going to be Scotch or Austrian. And both of those are very susceptible to pine wilt disease. And that blue stain fungus that we were seeing right in there, that is very common with plants that have been killed by pine wilt. Now, we can also have that blue stain occur without pine wilt disease, but with how quickly those trees were dying in 2 months, that makes sense for pine wilt disease. You will want to get those trees out about now, because this disease, it's actually so there is a pine sawyer beetle. It's a really cool disease. There's a pine sawyer beetle that feeds on a tree, and when it feeds on an infected tree, it eats some nematodes that are inside of the tree. And then it goes to a healthy tree, starts to feed, but it vomits up some of those nematodes. And now these nematodes, Bucephalanchus xylophilus, get into the healthy tree, and inside of the gut of the nematode, there is a fungus. And the nematodes will then farm this fungus inside of the tree, clogging up the vascular tissue, leading to that really sudden, quick death. So an exciting disease, but not something that you like to see. And unfortunately, what can you do about the rest of those? Get rid of them. I'm not aware, but generally, the cost of treating to control pine sawyer beetle doesn't really work, and those trees just need to come out and plan a new windbreak. Sorry about that.
Thanks, Kyle. So we diagnosed willow blight for this viewer last year, and it shows, so this is what he's seeing now. He knew it had the blight, but this is what the tree looks like now. Is it time to cut your losses on this one?
There's a fair amount of bark that is starting to slough off of that tree that is concerning. There is willow blight. I also was wondering about some maybe other cankers issues that are going on. I will default to the horticulturalist as far as whether or not this tree should come out, but I would plan on getting rid of it.
It's probably a good opportunity to take it out and try something new.
Excellent. Thanks, Scott. All right. You have pictures about hydrangeas. And these are Endless Summer, and the other is Nantucket Blue in your first pictures. And then you have, again, another one. But these 2 pictures, they're simply wondering, should she take the dead stick stems out of there now and call it good?
Go ahead and take out the dead. It might be a good opportunity to explore something new. These plants just don't tend to thrive in our climate.
Exactly. All right, 1 picture on the next one. This is a West Omaha viewer. She has purple leaf sand cherry and wascally wabbits. Got most of it, left it alone, and now it's got like rabbit ears. So should she go ahead and cut the rabbit ears off and let it come from the base?
Yes, go ahead and follow those stems down to where it connects to the plant. Great to have that rabbit fencing to help keep it from being munched on.
All right, thank you, Scott. Well, as we all start heading outdoors for another fun spring and summer, beware, some of our 8-legged friends might be trying to hitch a ride. Here's Jody with tips for keeping those ticks off you and your family.
Ticks are out in full force, and so after outside activities, no matter what the weather or what activity you are doing, make sure to perform a full body tick check. That's on you, your children, and your pets. Ticks hang out low to the ground on vegetation so that there's enough moisture for them to survive. They do something called questing, where they put out their forelegs and will latch on to any wildlife or person that brushes by them. What you can do to keep ticks out of your yard are to make sure that you mow the grass around where people are most often hanging out or gardening or playing, and make sure to keep wildlife out of those areas. When you are doing outside activity, wear light colored clothes so you can easily find those ticks and remove them before they get to your skin. You can wear permethrin treated clothing, which will keep you safe from ticks that contact those clothing. And when you get indoors afterwards, make sure you run your clothes through a hot dryer to kill any hitchhikers. Also, take a shower and check all your crevices to make sure ticks haven't hitchhiked home. If you find an embedded tick, remove that with pointy tweezers and keep that for ID. These tips will keep ticks manageable and keep you safe from any tick-borne illnesses.
There have been some reports that ticks are really active this year, so do heed Jody's advice. Stay on the trails, keep the spray handy, make sure you check for ticks when you return home. Now, of course, we have great announcements of wonderful things in the gardening world, starting with the May Museum 25th Annual Perennial Plant Sale, Saturday, May 4th in Fremont. Our second announcement this evening is for the Spring Affair Plant Sale. Preview is tonight, ticketed, but the rest of it is open to the public on Friday and Saturday. Our third one is the Horticulture Club, UNL Hort Club Annual Bedding Plant Sale, May 2nd and 3rd and 4th, teaching greenhouses. And our fourth one, I do believe, is Holy Trinity Arts Festival, May 18th, here in Lincoln, and we have a URL on the screen. So we are ramping up for things to do. All right, we're gonna roar through this on the last round. So let's see, your first one here for you is doing some tree trimming. This is a 40-plus-year-old ash. What causes this?
So it's not emerald ash borer. This is most likely caused by a bark beetle, which is a type of true weevil. We can just see that from the pattern of the galleries. And they tend to damage wood that's already dead. So I would assume maybe there's something else going on with the tree that you might want to have an arborist check out.
All right, excellent. From Otoe County again, strange looking little spider. She just wonders what he is, and is he a good guy?
So this is a slender crab spider, and yes, it's a good guy. No need to worry about bites. They're just pretty cool to look at.
All right, Rock, you have two pictures on this one. This is a Bellevue viewer. She had utility workers that planted this to repair some areas where they worked. It was not her choice of what to put down. She wonders what type of grass is it? What is the most permanent way to get rid of it but keep the good grass?
So this is perennial ryegrass or annual ryegrass, one or the other, one that shiny appearance to it. Plus that's what's thrown out when you want something to germinate in 3 to 5 days, and so it's a quick patch job. Even if it's perennial ryegrass, it's going to fade out with our summers, especially if we keep the water off of it and that sort of thing, and then I would just overseed it with the desired species, whatever she chooses next fall. So probably won't survive our summer.
So no
there's no reason to kill it with a herbicide, nope.
All right, excellent. You have one picture from this next viewer. She is from McCook. She's getting large areas of her lawn that look really different from the rest of her turf. The blades are thicker, it grows faster. Any idea on this one?
I think that's actually smooth brome because they use it a lot as a roadside grass in Kansas and parts of western Nebraska. So I think that's smooth brome that's blown in from seed because they don't mow the roadsides, and that's what I'm guessing it is based on its appearance and how it's aggressively growing now, and the lawn is just barely keeping up.
All right, Rock, you have one picture on this one. This is a seed mix picture. It's available in hardware stores. This person is interested in a clover/turf lawn. Is this kind of clover, it's durier or something like that, I think, good to use in Gothenburg and in the eastern part of the state?
So I had to look this particular brand up, and unfortunately, the clover is fine. It's just white clover, but the grass in it is not. Anytime you see a label and they don't identify what species it is, let alone variety, we tend to not think that's something that we want to put out because you don't know what you're planting. You could be planting a forage grass, you could be planting something that's not adapted. And that's one of those sort of generic bags. And I don't mean to slam the company, but when you don't put the grass species on there, that's alarming to me. And there are other mixes out there, commercially available mixes in the garden stores that are far better, and they'll actually name the variety of grass that's in there as well as the variety of clover.
All right, thank you, Rock. One picture on this one, Kyle. This is a Manhattan, Kansas viewer, 20-year-old maple. She thinks it's scale. We think it's shrooms. Yes. So should she start over?
Probably. There's a pretty big wound there, and we do have those fruiting bodies that are starting to come out. Can't tell what type of mushroom it is, but anytime we have mushrooms growing on a tree, they are feeding on that tree. So again, it's a young enough tree. Probably best just to start over.
All right. One picture on this next one for you, Kyle, and he did take this in early September, and this is in Fremont.
I thought the timing was a bit strange for this one.
She wonders, he said it was very bright orange. What is this?
That is most likely a chicken of the woods mushroom. And if he ate it, he probably would have said that it's quite tasty as well. Unfortunately, we can't, with only seeing a picture, we can never recommend consumption. So the nice thing is it's September, that mushroom is long gone by now, whether it was eaten or not. So, but that is a chicken of the woods, and watch out for that tree.
So, kind of a follow-up question about those sorts of chickens on our trees. Do they disappear over time, or do they just keep coming back year after year after year?
They tend to come back year after year because they're feeding on the heartwood of the tree, and so they have basically mycelial tendrils that are going into the center of the tree. And when we have the right environmental conditions, we'll get those fruiting bodies that just reappear.
All right, thank you, Kyle. One picture for you on this first one, Scott. This is a Hudson, Wisconsin viewer found these growing in her flower pot. What are they?
They look like the garden lily. It's not uncommon for them to pop up in the strangest of places. You can pop them back up, put them in the ground, and just enjoy.
All right, and one picture on this next one. Again, longtime watcher, first-time viewer, loves us, which we always appreciate. Has a river frost birch, looks like a split in one of the trunks. She wants to know if she should wrap it, faces west.
We don't want to wrap it. There's a lot going on with that tree. One of the things that you could do is pull up that landscape fabric, put some mulch around it, just try good plant health care practices, but otherwise, no wrapping.
Well, and I think that it looks like perhaps they had already cut one trunk off on that one.
It looks like it might be another good opportunity to try something new, hopefully less susceptible to damage.
Well, and the last two, both yours, Kyle, and yours, Scott, those trees, the damage was facing west-southwest. So again, with our weather conditions where
Sun's cold for
80 degrees in February and 60 degree difference the next night was like
believe it or not, plants don't like that.
You're kidding.
I thought they would love it, but that shows how much I know.
Well, how about people? Did we like it? We did not. We did not.